The End of Infinity. Audiobook 4 of 11, welcome back. You've stood at the edge of the unknown. You've felt how early we are in the story. Now comes the question that stops most people in their tracks. If infinity has no end, what does the word end even mean? Everything ends. Or does it? We are surrounded by endings. Days end, seasons end, lives end. Stars burn out, civilizations rise and fall and disappear into dust. Even the universe itself, according to our best current understanding, will eventually reach a state of maximum entropy, a final stillness, a last echo. Everything we know points in one direction, toward conclusion, toward closure, toward the end. And yet, infinity, by definition, has no end. It cannot. The moment you place a boundary around it, it stops being infinity. It becomes something smaller, something finite, something we can, at least in principle, measure and contain. So which is it? Does everything end, or does nothing? The answer, it turns out, is both. And understanding why is one of the most liberating ideas in this entire journey. The end was the echo of the beginning. Consider what we know about endings in nature. A wave reaches the shore and breaks. Is that the end of the wave? Or is it water returning to water, energy dispersing back into the system that generated it in the first place? A star collapses. In that collapse, it seeds the surrounding space with the elements that will eventually become new stars, new planets, new life. The ending is not a conclusion. It is a transformation, a dispersal, a becoming something else. Even the Big Bang itself, the beginning of everything we know, may have been preceded by something, a previous state, a collapse that became an explosion, an end that became a beginning so total and so complete that we call it the start of time itself. Every ending is an echo of a beginning. Every beginning carries within it the seed of its own ending, not as tragedy, as cycle, infinity folded into itself. This is what infinity actually looks like up close. Not a straight line stretching forever in one direction. Not an endless corridor with no doors and no windows, but something folded. Something that curves back on itself. Something where the end and the beginning are not opposites, but partners. The infinity symbol itself tells you this. It doesn't point in one direction. It loops. It returns. It is always, simultaneously, going somewhere and coming back. This is not a mathematical abstraction. It is a description of reality as we actually experience it. Your breath ends and begins with every cycle. Your sleep ends and your waking begins. Daily, reliably, rhythmically. The relationships that shaped you ended and became part of who you are now. The person you were 10 years ago ended gradually and became you. Ending is not the opposite of existing. It is part of how existing works. What does this mean for us? If every ending is a transformation rather than a termination, if infinity folds rather than stops, then the way we relate to endings can change. Not by denying them, not by pretending loss isn't real, or that grief isn't valid, or that endings don't hurt. They do. That's part of being alive and being aware, but by understanding that an ending is rarely the last word. It is more often a doorway, a turning point, a moment where one form of something gives way to another. Every ending is a new beginning, not as consolation, as structure, as the actual shape of things. And so part 1 closes. You have now walked through the 4 introductions. You have stood at the edge of the great unknown. You have understood how early we are, how new humanity is to this vast and ancient universe. And now you have felt the shape of infinity itself, not as a line, as a loop, not as distance, as depth. Part 1 is complete, but the journey is far from over. In Part 2, we go deeper, into the philosophy itself, into the frameworks and the frameworks beyond the frameworks, into the questions that have occupied human beings for as long as we have been capable of asking them. We close this audiobook with a track from the album The End of Infinity, called The End Was the Echo of the Beginning. Let it fold around you. Let it remind you that what feels like a conclusion is almost always something else entirely. Also, this album is available on your streaming service. Looking forward to meeting you in Audiobook 5, The Infinity Religion. Ready when you are.
The end was the echo of the beginning.